The president is dead. Emerging from the Great Depression, the nation fights enemies on two fronts as World War II rages. Sworn in not 3 months earlier, the vice president rarely met with his predecessor and received no guidance. Plain-spoken, intelligent, but without any college education, daunted by the responsibility that thrusts him center stage at one of the most critical points in American history, this man from Missouri becomes our nation's 33rd president. He will oversee the rise of America's preeminence in the world and leave an indelible mark upon the presidency at one of history's most crucial junctures. Born in Lamar, Missouri in 1884, Harry S. Truman is a true son of the Midwest. Attending public schools in Independence, young Harry, a voracious reader, graduates from high school in 1901. With no money for college, he works as a railroad timekeeper and a bank clerk before returning to help his father run the family farm in Grandview. He accepts the long days and hard work on the farm, but yearns to see the wide world that he's only read about. That opportunity finally comes in 1917, when at the age of 33, he unhesitatingly answers President Woodrow Wilson's call to make the world safe for democracy by enlisting in the Army to fight in World War I. Crisscrossing Jackson County in a personal recruiting campaign, Truman signs up many younger men to join the Army, and in the process raises his profile. Thus, at boot camp in Oklahoma, Harry Truman is voted by his fellow doughboys to be their first lieutenant and lead them into battle. With pragmatism, intelligence, and a paternal desire to protect his boys, now Captain Truman marches his artillery unit of 4 guns and 94 men through the horrors of war with minimal casualties. Returning to Missouri a war hero, Harry woos Bess Wallace of Independence. Competing with far more eligible suitors, he wins Bess's hand in a stunning upset victory. It is but one of many to follow. By November of 1919, Truman partners with his close Army buddy Eddie Jacobson and opens the men's furnishing store of Truman and Jacobson in downtown Kansas City, only to close in a tough economy 18 months later. It will take many years, but Truman would pay off every penny owed from this business failure. With few prospects, Truman accepts an offer from an Army buddy to work for his uncle. The buddy is named James Pendergast. His uncle, his boss Tom Pendergast, Kansas City's powerful, corrupt, and notorious party boss. Winning election as a Jackson County court judge, Truman becomes a cog in the Pendergast political machine. Nevertheless, Harry Truman finds his true calling in public service. By 1934, the hard-campaigning Democrat wins election to the U.S. Senate from the state of Missouri.
He brought with him the unpretentious integrity of his Midwestern farm folk and the determination to be economically thrifty and socially fair and honest.
Only yesterday, we laid to rest the mortal remains of our beloved President, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
The sudden death of Franklin Delano Roosevelt on April 12, 1945, thrust Truman into the Oval Office. His first months there would prove to be the most critical and relentlessly paced of any presidency before or since.
Both Germany and Japan can be certain that America will continue the fight for freedom until no vestige of resistance remains.
We must learn to live together in peace.
The forces of Germany have surrendered to the United Nations.
Let's not forget that we are fighting for peace and for the welfare of mankind.
By August of 1945, U.S. forces surround Japan, yet the land of the rising sun refuses to yield. A conventional invasion would cost both sides countless lives. A blockade could take months. In a decision which remains controversial to this day, President Truman orders the use of the world's first atomic bomb, striking the city of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. 3 days later, a second is dropped on Nagasaki. Never will he voice second thoughts, nor lose any sleep over his choice to use every resource at his command, despite thousands of civilian casualties. In less than a week after the Nagasaki raid, Japan surrenders.
An iron curtain has descended across the continent.
The Soviet Union and its agents have destroyed the independence and democratic character of a whole series of nations in Eastern and Central Europe.
In 1947, to promote good relations with our war-torn European allies, Truman champions the Marshall Plan and its unprecedented amount of economic aid, facilitating Western Europe's recovery and that region's continued resistance to the spread of communism. By initiating the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, he also assures America's allies that the U.S. will stand with them if they are attacked. NATO establishes a firm line of defense in Europe that has never been crossed. In May of 1948, Israel proclaims its hard-won independence. Truman's longtime friend Eddie Jacobson convinces the president to override the advice of many in his administration, and the United States becomes the first nation to recognize the new Jewish state. Soon after, the first major international crisis of the Cold War lands on the president's desk. Joseph Stalin, already expanding Soviet domination over much of Eastern Europe, is determined to bring the partitioned city of Berlin behind the Iron Curtain. A Soviet blockade of all rail and ground access chokes off supplies to the beleaguered capital. While Berliners are starving, many Americans fear war with the Soviet Union is imminent. Against the warnings of his cabinet and even his military leaders, Truman refuses to abandon Berlin or back down from Stalin's aggression. On a scale never before attempted, and facing staggering logistical obstacles, Truman vows to deliver essential supplies to Berlin via round-the-clock air shipments. Within a year, American and British planes have delivered more cargo than would have been possible on the ground. Humiliated, Stalin ends the blockade in May of 1949. It is a triumph of American ingenuity, American determination, and the operational skill of the American military. Unfortunately, that same American military remains racially segregated. Elsewhere in society, civil rights are beginning to advance, one modest step at a time. So a year after Jackie Robinson breaks the color line in Major League Baseball, Harry Truman, through a simple executive order, declares that all people of all colors and creeds can serve their country with honor, dignity, and equality.
Senator Barkley and I'll win this election and make these Republicans like it. Don't you forget that. I am therefore calling this Congress back into session on the 26th of July.
Re-elected is Harry Truman, who fought his way against every political sage in the world and won to victory.
We know that the cost of freedom is high, but we are determined to preserve our freedom no matter what the cost.
I have therefore considered it essential to relieve General MacArthur so that there would be no doubt or confusion as to the real purpose and aim of our policy.
South 32.
Well, it's good to be back home in what I call the center of the world, Independence, Missouri.
A return to private life means a return home to independence, to settle into the house on North Delaware Street, where Bess grew up. Citizen Harry is very happy to take his daily constitutional and to return to the simple pleasures of a simple life, like reading a good book and celebrating his birthday with old friends. Each May 8th, friends from all chapters of Harry Truman's life, his boyhood, his time in the Army, his years in local politics, gather together at the Mulebach Hotel in Kansas City to commemorate the birthday and good works of their humble friend. With Eddie Jacobson's death in 1955, this group of friends forms the Eddie Jacobson Memorial Foundation to promote and encourage those qualities and causes personified by Truman's closest friend. On the day after Christmas in 1972, Harry Truman dies peacefully at the age of 88. Many in the area believe it vital to make certain that the good men do lives after them. Thus, from those birthday gatherings, from the Eddie Jacobson Memorial Foundation, springs the Harry S. Truman Good Neighbor Award Foundation. Its goal is to honor and perpetuate President Truman and his achievements. It seeks to promote good citizenship, patriotism, public service, courage, and self-reliance, to improve and foster friendly relations between all nations, races, and religions.
I didn't have a college education, and I'm not bragging about that, but I'm of the opinion that a much better job could have been done if I'd had that educational background to begin with.
To embody and carry forward Truman's educational values, the Foundation awards college scholarships to undergraduate and graduate students studying international relations. To honor the President's battlefield leadership in World War I and his lifelong respect for our soldiers, the Foundation each year pays tribute to a distinguished veteran of the U.S. Armed Services. And to further recognize the importance of education in our increasingly interconnected world, the Foundation honors international students studying in the Kansas City area. Starting in 1973 with Chief Justice Earl Warren, each year the Foundation presents the esteemed Good Neighbor Award, honoring the public figure who best embodies President Truman's principles and philosophy. Its honorees constitute a list of who's who, spanning politics and public service to journalism and education. By its efforts, the Foundation seeks to ensure that the man who guided this country through some of its most challenging times, President Harry S. Truman, will live forever in the minds of free people everywhere.